Welcome to the Running for Real podcast, where each week we bring you a conversation designed to help you create positive change in your life, community, and planet. It's a collective of conversations about running, the climate emergency, and social justice. Running for Real is for the brave, for those with courage and vulnerability. United by our love of running, we're driving momentum towards some of the really tough challenges we're facing as humanity. So come join me, Tina Muir, and let's get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 266 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited you are here, and we are going to get a really enjoyable episode today. I'm excited that Janji, some of my friends at Janji, introduced me to my guest today, who is Christian Gering. He's a multimedia artist. He is a Native American runner and a professional trail and ultra runner for Salomon, America. He takes his experiences as a runner and he translates those feelings, the emotions, the ideas, the visions, and manifests them into this beautiful artwork. This is a really special conversation that we are going to get here. It isn't as focused on like the traditional parts of running that maybe you've heard before, but Christian is poetic in the way that he speaks. He has so much to share. I am really excited for the work he is going to be doing with Janji, and he just has a lot of insights to offer. So I really appreciate him joining me today, and I think you will too. So we're going to take a moment to thank our sponsors, then we'll be right to the episode with Christian Gering. Thank you to Gouda for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I've loved seeing lately that my daughter, 3-year-old Bailey, is seeing me and my husband wearing Goudas so much that she wants to wear them all the time. She loves the aviator style ones. She wants to wear them all the time. Of course, she gets a ton of comments with these giant glasses on her face. They just about fit her and stay on her head, but she loves them. She wears them all the time. They are so fun. They are really comfortable, and they're $25 or $35 each. That's it for these shades. You know, we've all got an expensive, a time where we've lost or scratched a pair of expensive glasses. I definitely have a pair of them. Came across mine with a big scratch in the middle the other day, and it just made me feel annoyed. But I love Gouda. They are so comfortable. I have many pairs. They're fun, they're fashion, they're functional, they're affordable, no slip, no bounce, all polarized, all fun. Every pair you purchase is backed by a 1-year warranty. They have 30-day free returns. What more could you ask for? Wait, I do have something else. They are 100% carbon neutral company and proud members of 1% for the planet since 2018, as is Running for Real. So yes, there's so much to say about Gouda. If you would like to support me and this show, you can treat yourself to a pair or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of Goudas and head over to goodr.com/Tina and get yourself 15% off your order. That's 15% off at goodr.com/Tina. Your face is going to thank you. I am going to thank you. You will see so much fun on that website. Go check it out. Christian, thank you so much for joining me today on the Running for Real podcast. I'm excited that you are here. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share some space with you and some stories and just really get into whatever we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I want to thank Dave Spandorfer for very eagerly being like, you have to interview Christian. You're being very excited to put us together. And, I'm very excited to dig into this conversation. And I think this is going to align perfectly with a lot of what we talk about here on Running for Real. And so maybe let's begin with that. I mentioned Dave Spandorfer of Janji. How does Janji come into this conversation? As what exciting news do you have in terms of them?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could begin with, I have some large trucks passing by my house. But no, I initially got involved with Janji just due to mutual connections through a fellow runner, his name being Dustin Martin. Dustin is, I consider him a brother. in relation to what we've done together. He's an executive director for Wings of America.
Yes.
And it is a nonprofit that is focused on engaging Native American youth around the nation with running and promoting healthy lifestyles through running and through other ways of moving messages with movement. So a lot of what Wings of America stands for is a lot of what I think I align myself with and what I choose to promote as being an Indigenous person. So having the connection built through Dustin. Dustin and I have gone many runs together, done so many different adventures, from prayer runs to mountain runs to just, even working together. That when he heard the call, Janji was looking to do this quote unquote artist series. I think Dave, has been in connection with Dustin for quite a long time because of their experience at the University of Columbia. That Dustin, knew about my background of wanting to expand out of running and wanting to be more of a creative, which has been a part of my, my life for such a long time, that I think Dustin naturally felt it would be a great fit. So, this partnership and this connection that I've been building with Janji has been on since about the fall of last year. And since I've been a part of Janji, it's been a pleasure. They brought me a lot of great opportunity, but definitely honored my creativity and also my perspective when it comes to what I want to be able to share with the community. So yeah, very excited. So I'm going to be the first quote unquote artist, kind of runner artist series that they have. Normally, I believe they have an artist series for their collection. But this is the first time that a runner is actually designing the apparel. So to have that as, as a thing of my experience now, as it's been such an honor. So much of what I've learned through this process is being able to step into opportunity with confidence and knowing that I am capable, which I want to remind so many people that, when there's that doubt, it's almost like if we have to equate it with running, it's like that moment that you're on the start line and you're wondering, there's anxiety potentially. There's those thoughts that are coming to your mind. You're seeing your fellow competitors. You're excited by the environment and wondering if like whatever you did is going to be enough. And just to remind people that when we put in the work and we manifest and we have that intention, is that, you are enough. We all capable of whatever we put our mind to. And in this moment of being able to learn through just experience and getting my feet wet, I've just been so grateful that I continually be able to show up. So again, I'm appreciative. I just want to, extend again my gratitude to Dustin Martin and also Dave, but also the whole other team at Janji, just being able to help bring to life my creative vision and be able to share that not only with myself, my family, but the greater running community.
So cool. And I just want to say to the listeners, Janji did not tell me to mention this. They did not say this is about Janji. I just was genuinely curious. And I think, well, you just said that. I mean, I want to pull on that in just a minute. But before we go into that, let's step back a little bit. So you've clearly, you've made it very clear that you are an active, engaged runner. You get running. This is not someone, you're not someone who turns up on a, Wednesday and Friday morning and says, I'm just going to run. Like, this deeply. And I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about how running was involved in your life, whenever it came into your world, and what that has meant for the way you've grown up to view yourself as a human being. I mean, you've already given little snippets into it, but I'd love to start there.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I have done, surprisingly, I have done a lot of a decent amount of interviews where they're asking that question, similar, question. And I feel like it grows different every time. I would say I'm grateful for my parents, both Ilian and Edward, who raised me to be curious. And I start with this kind of not even a story, but just knowing as you're younger, when you're in your adolescence, when you're off of school, it's summer break, and, your parents are curious of what you're going to be doing. They have work, they have other responsibilities. That I just recall a time that, when I would be, potentially led to figure out what I'm going to do for the day, I was always reminded by my parents saying, if you're bored, then I can do something. I could, they'd always be like, well, if you're bored, I could have you read the newspaper. I could, they'd always invite me to be active, and not only just in the sense of my body, but with my mind, intellectually. I happen to fall in the line of wanting to be more active with my body. So a common saying that they would say would be go outside. And I reflect on that so much because that is where the imagination for myself started, is that when they're saying go outside and play, you're really not led to much belief around what is it that I'm going to be doing outside. Playing is such a very innocent and fun thing when you're, in your younger years, that there's just so much before you. You could really find a lot of a lot of fun things when you have that imagination that isn't stripped of its authenticity because of other people's perspectives, of other people saying, this is how you play. So as a young person, I just always held that so close to my heart, because when I got the chance to go outside, I had the chance to express myself. And in the many ways that I did, growing up in Las Vegas, Nevada, which I grew up there for a good portion of my life, at least to my teen years. It's hot. It's hot in the summer. It's nice and warm in the winter. But growing up there was just so much for me to be drawn to, and much of it was around sports. Much of it was around outdoor recreation, and much of it was just me being able to express myself outside. So I refer to that when I think about running, because a lot of the times when I was playing outside or being outside, I was running, and I wouldn't, quote unquote, necessarily call myself at the time a runner. But a lot of I think the values and virtues that I now continue to have as I've grown into my age, that I still value, I still hold true to myself, because that is what I want to keep. When I think of passion, when I think of pursuit, and discipline and practice, I think of that, of just keeping that intimate understanding that when we choose to do these things, whether it be running, whether it be, rock climbing, whether it be some other type of sport that you're pursuing, is to keep that playfulness to it, And so much of when we're growing up, there's not much, pressure. There's not much expectation. There's just the chance to be. And that's where I remind myself that imagination really came from. Being able to think of, building forts outside, playing in the mud, getting dirty, getting your friends together, and you're both outside, and you're wondering, what are we going to do? And you're like, well, this is what we have around us. We have trees, we have grass, we have rocks, we have each other, and we get to do it together. So much of my running, career, I would say, has stemmed from that. But growing up, just because I was drawn more to using my body as a form of expression, I really got heavily involved with sports early on. And that's mainly due to my father being very encouraging of me, realizing that my potential is what I choose to put into every day when I wake up, is that we have the chance to, have a normal life, or we can have an exceptional life. And that's really just based upon perspective and waking up with that mentality. Early on, it wasn't so much, I knew that, but as I've gotten older, I recognized the integrity that he was trying to, imbue upon me. So, by the age of 5, early on, just played outside a lot, explored, did a lot of things with my friends, and really just got the chance to figure out what I was drawn to. And early on, it was soccer and skateboarding. So when I turned 5, my father started coaching me in soccer because he had a background in coaching for soccer, and naturally just, I grew drawn to the sport and to the love of it. To this day, I still love watching things on Champions League or within the FIFA realm, and, just really took off with it because I appreciate the team dynamic. I appreciate being able to be around other younger people and being able to, let's have a common goal of bettering ourselves, and then, going into a game and seeing how we are going to be in relation to this other team. So yeah, from about 5 till about just about to the beginning of high school, I was on a track to just be, not a quote unquote soccer star, but I do remember there being a point about towards middle school where I was considering, okay, like this is going to be something I want to continue on after school and after my adolescent teen years. I want to see if I can make this an actual reality, into, professional sport. So, having that background, my dad being the coach he was, I think a lot of what he recognized within sport has rubbed off on me is that there's so much, there's only so much that talent will do. And I hear this so many times with so many coaches that, there's only so much that talent will do. But if you don't have hard work, discipline, and that routine, then it's not going to be much when it comes to actual performance and actually living into what it is you want. So a lot of the times, when it came to us practicing and building as a team, we actually ended up, spending a lot of time running. I remember early, start of practice, middle of practice, and end of practice, we'd always be running of some sort. Uh-huh. So it'd be different dynamics. Start of practice, we'd be warming up, running around the field a couple times. Middle of practice, he'd usually do some hill workouts with us. And that was just to us build our muscle capacity and strength. And then towards the end, we'd play long scrimmages for minutes that were longer than, 45 to a full 90 minutes, to where we're just running the whole time. So I think that's where I start to realize that I have that endurance component when it comes to being a quote unquote distance runner. Mm-hmm. But really didn't come through, didn't really shine through because I was just so focused on my skills when it came to soccer and trying to build in the fundamentals. To then, when it came to the point of high school, I started to really get involved within the competitive realm. I moved away from recreation league and really start to pursue how I can get colleges and universities to look at me. So there was an Olympic development program in Nevada, which was a pool for young soccer players to be able to be drafted or to be able to be considered for college, which I got into. And, from my experience, it may be different for others, especially those that have continued on, but I really felt the effects of the politics behind the sport, and I think I also appreciate my parents for also having, wanting me to be educated and wanting me to seek knowledge, but also seek my understanding within place when we talk about community. And that's why I think at that time, I wasn't knowing that it was not quote unquote political, but it was definitely a dynamic when it came to like having to see who gets more playing time, what parents know about other parents and the coach, that I start to see that and I start to feel that affects that. As much as this is a team dynamic, there's so much that goes into this type of sport and this whole, I guess, community that also can be stifling to young people, especially when you have a group of all, of all genders, of all people that want to pursue something to the point that they want to be valued and they want to be, they want to have honor in what they're doing. And I kind of felt a little bit discouraged at the time of not feeling like I had outside of my family a supportive environment to pursue, the competitive life of a soccer player, to where I eventually just decided that, I think I've reached my point of comfortability and also, I guess, pursuit, that I just decided that it was time to let go of that, that quote unquote dream. But, surprisingly towards the end of that, I guess point in my life where I was like, okay, I'm going to transition to something different. There was also my dad at the time wanting to share with me something of importance, which was, continuing healthy practices and discipline. And I bring up that word discipline up because, growing up with another brother and my dad, we're very, it was a boys' house at times. So we're having to express ourselves in ways that I think are a beautiful representation of masculinity. Yet at the same time, there's also some similar, tropes or similar things of, boys will be boys types of things, which I'm not necessarily saying what is promoted here, but I realize that when I get the chance to be who I am as a man, And I bring that up because sometimes gender has to play a lot within our society, especially when we think about inclusion, when it comes to sports, when it comes to involvement in a lot of arenas, that I have a privilege of being a man. And a lot of those times that when I choose to be in my masculinity is when I can be physically exerting myself. And I think it does help, for myself, it does help me have an understanding of myself better when I'm able to physically move my body. And my dad, I think, recognized that early on, that Christian's pretty hyper. He's pretty excited that he needs stimulus, so let's give that to him. But also at the time, this is at a point when I'm deciding to stop running soccer, that my brother's also leaving to go to the military to be, enlisted in the Marines. So at the time when I was, transitioning, my brother just got out of boot camp, Marine Corps. And for him, my dad thought, it would be a great last bonding experience for the men of the house to share something together, something that would be of significance. So my dad was like, why don't we sign up for the Las Vegas Marathon? And let's see.
And how old were you at this point?
I was a freshman in high school.
Wow. Okay.
Again, I'm leaving soccer. I'm still like figuring out what I'm going to do in high school. And, my brother's 5 years older than me. So yeah, I'm about freshman, sophomore year. And, I was for it, it was a friendly competition. It's just, who's gonna win, in the sense of amongst us three. So, my brother coming out of boot camp, he's fitter than an ox. My dad having a lot of history and a lot of, I think training for himself growing up, had a lot of experience. And then for me, I'm the newest one, and I'm kind of the, how would you put it? Cocky one. You would say I was the one that was, I'm younger, I'm faster, I'm more nimble. So a lot of the times when it came to training and showing up for that, my brother had plenty of training during boot camp. My dad was researching the run walk method, which I felt I was like, that's
below you, right?
Yeah. I'm like, wait, you're going to run, but you're also going to walk. I was like, I don't need to train. That was my whole thing. So I remember my dad, we had a year to prepare. So I would say amongst that year to prepare, I probably trained upwards of maybe 3 months, and not even consistently. It would probably be like one day of the week I'd run, maybe the next week I'd run 2 days, and then take a week off and run like one other day. But I remember there was one significant point where my dad wants to do a half marathon trial for himself. And he invited me out, and I probably, before that point, ran of upwards of maybe like a 5K. And I was like, well, yeah, I'll see where I stack up halfway. And it was at this little local park that had a large loop around it. And sure enough, we started together, and I beat him by at least like 30 minutes. So that only helped boost my.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm gonna do just fine at the marathon. So then that made sense to me. I don't need to train anymore. I'm good. I'm not gonna do this. To where December of that year, which was my freshman year, ended up starting the line and meeting my brother, my dad on the start line. And I took off with my brother and stuck with him probably up to mile 11, to where then I started to realize running on concrete with not the greatest shoes and not the most preparation in terms of training wreaked havoc on my body. I started having knee, like runner's knee. I got tight in my shoulders. I was hurting. And probably by mile 15, I realized I might not even finish this race. To where, bless my brother, but he decided to stick with me. I think a lot of the values that, the Marines and that community built around him, around brotherhood and unity, stuck with me. And even though we slowed down significantly, he stuck with me till about mile 22, and at that point, I remember there was a significant turning point because we were rolling up to an aid station. And at this point, I'm limping, walking, my brother's sticking with me, and my dad's coming by and we hear him, and he's like running in and just chipper, big smile. And I could just already feel he has something to say. And sure enough, he goes, all that training, is it paying off for you, Christian? And I don't even respond, I think, because I'm just in so much pain. But at that point, I just remember my brother, looking at him and having a switch in his mind, like, oh yeah, we're running, we're racing each other, to where, to this day, my dad ended up beating both of us, and my brother ended up, feeling a little some way about it. But to this day, my dad and my brother have been one of the few people in my family to beat me at running.
Thank you to Inside Tracker for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Inside Tracker knows that change is an inside job, and it is a way for you to check out what is going on the inside. Blood work is one of the best ways you can do that. I have been using this for many years. I've had 10 plus tests, and I love that they track my numbers of each of my stats, I guess, over time. Biomarkers, that's the term. They track them over time so I can see how I'm doing, see which ones are in optimize, have moved into optimize, out of optimized, and make changes based on what it recommends. It gives you foods to eat. It gives you lifestyle changes you can make. It is going to be really easy for you to track. And it's just going to give you these science-based recommendations for a positive diet and lifestyle change that you can use. It's going to give you that concrete action plan. So someone is just telling you what to do within your life based on your body, which is what we all need, right? We all are trying to make too many decisions in our day-to-day life. As I said, I've been using Inside Tracker for many years. I love it. And you, my friend, as a Running for Real listener, can get 25% off your order by going to Inside Tracker. That's insidetracker.com/Tina. That will get you 20% off your order. And it is a wonderful way to just keep an eye on how your body is doing. Highly recommend it. I've been using it for years. Thank you again to Inside Tracker.
To this day, my dad ended up beating both of us. And my brother ended up, feeling a little some way about it. But to this day, my dad and my brother have been one of the few people in my family to beat me at running. And I have not gotten them the chance to run against me again, because now as I've progressed in my career, they're like, no way.
They don't want it. Yeah, they want to keep that crown, right?
Yeah. So I think it took me about 4 hours and like 45 minutes.
That's still pretty good for, like you said, no training. I mean, pretty impressive there. And I'd like to dive more into, you've mentioned a few times while you were sharing that, and thank you for sharing that part of your journey about movement being creativity, about having this creative inspiration that is linked to a passion for movement. And you have now taken that into the rest of your career. You ended up running all the way through, till now, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I really want to just go into that a little bit more. So tell us about, it's very much by many seen that if you are an artsy creative person, you have that over here, that's kept completely separate. And then I also run. And those are two separate things, but I love the way that you tie those together. So just tell us a little bit about, you said you felt that as a kid. Were you aware of that? Or when did you pull it together and realize that these two things are very much interlinked?
I think I don't know if it was early on. I just know that there was a lot of imagination, creativity when I was growing up. I remember there's so much times that we could recall, like, how am I thinking about this game? Like, I remember there was some summers, my cousin Miguel and I, we'd be at the pool and we'd be thinking of like these weird scenarios and playing characters and jumping in the pool in weird ways and fighting off certain villains and stuff that, like, I think of that, like that being an example of being very creative.
Mm-hmm.
But once I think it started to, really hit me, or I started to recognize it within my life, was I think at a point where I'll bring it up because it's a divergent point away, trying to almost compartmentalize these two things. It was after high school where I ran for the Santa Fe Indian School in New Mexico here. Mm-hmm. And we had a, decent, I had only a 1 year cross country career there. It was like a 1 season career. So I didn't even have much to say like I was a runner then, legitimately. But there was a point where I was like, okay, I have not played soccer in almost 4 years. I'm not that great. I'm not like getting scouted by universities. So what else do I like to do? And throughout, all my adolescent years, I've always been creative. I've always been making art of some sort. to where after high school, I realized, well, I'm not going to go for sports, so I'll pursue the other A, which is my artistic side.
Mm-hmm.
It's not athletics, I'll do art. So I went to the Institute of American Indian Arts. And at that point, I remember just kind of getting further away from moving my body. And at the same time, I'm starting to see a stagnancy in my creative flow because I'm not moving my body as much. And I feel like that's where I think a lot of the times I'd spend outside doing things where a lot of that practice of being imaginative and creative really, for myself, gives me the chance to just do that. But so much of that experience going to that school gave me the insight to like what it takes to be an artist. But I just got really involved with not I say the wrong crowd. I just chose actions and behaviors that I don't think supported my desire to be an artist, to where I remember early on that I was just going down a path of, using substances, marijuana and alcohol quite regularly. And I'm pretty open about that because it's a reality. And I'm just grateful that my body, and I give thanks to my body every day, that it has been so loving and caring to me that I still have had the ability to run at a quote unquote professional level.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when I was at art school, I was not wearing running shorts and I was not getting up early to go for that run. I was actually doing the opposite, sleeping in and just, really being more social if that would be the case. But towards the end of my time at that school, I connected with a person. His name was Michael Curley. He was a Zuni Pueblo indigenous person. And as I was realizing I was going to get kicked out of the dorms for use of substances, I realized I was not going to have a place to stay in Santa Fe. So I was really heartbroken that I was considering I might have to drop out because I'm not going to have a place to stay. And the school is too far out of the way for me even to make a daily commute because I didn't even think I had a vehicle at the time. So I remember him and I the last few weeks or like last few months before I knew I was going to have to leave for summer break or winter break, that him and I go on runs. And I remember just that those last few months just being grateful for the time him and I spent because I started to realize we were doing it every day, getting back into running and having conversation and talking about our process and just what we want to do. And it became therapeutic to then the point for me was that I was starting to see the connection back to movement and my creativity to where after I left, my mentor, who is Sean Trujillo, who was my mentor in high school, and a lot of my friends, Maya Hina and Joseph Skeets, were coming out of high school. So I was meeting them back with my mentor. And when I decided to drop out, they invited me to join them on their backpacking trips. So now I'm, leaving this, this community of artists to then now going back to my community, I felt. And we're going up into the mountains, and now we're just hiking, backpacking into the forest, into the wilderness, and spending times just being amongst the trees, amongst the rivers, amongst the land, and talking, having deep reflective time about what we want to pursue and what we want to put intention behind. And at that point, I remember it was about 2010, and I remember we went up into the Pecos, which is a wilderness area here just east of Santa Fe. And my mentor at the time talked about this race in Chamonix called the Ultra Trail Mont Blanc. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, there goes my almost to reminisce of the first time I ran a marathon. I was like, oh, I got to sign up. Like, let's go sign up tomorrow. So I remember we came down from the mountain that weekend and I went in to visit with him. I said, how do we sign up? Let's just sign us up and let's go out to Chamonix.
Can you just tell people who don't know a little bit about what UTMB involves, just so they kind of get the understanding of how big of a task you were about to do?
Yeah, UTMB is a long run around the Swiss French Alps. I want to say it's 100, close to in American distance. It's 100, close to 100 miles.
I think it is 100 miles, isn't it?
Yeah, 100 miles. I forget what the kilometers is, if you can translate that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Too Americanized.
A long time and a long distance around these mountains. So you circumnavigate Mont Blanc, which is a large mountain in Chamonix, France. And, I had no training, had no idea of what even an ultra was, let alone just knowing that it's associated with this Ultra Trail Mont Blanc. So come to find out, we go to the website and there's not an easy register button. It's actually, you need points, you need these accreditations. And I said, oh, okay, well, how do I do it? How do I start to build up to that point? And
so you had in your mind then at that point, like, I am going to do this. Are you very much a person that gets something in your mind and then figures a way?
Most definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes it's random ideas. It's like, again, with my creative process, it could be an idea. And that night I'll stay up all night getting the idea out, refining it. So that's where, those times I spent up in the mountains, after that conversation, I remember there was a switch, there was a big switch in my desire, because I was leaving my artistic path to then finding my connection back to my athleticism. Mm-hmm. Which is, I think I grew up so much with that it felt natural. So, once I found out about the Ultra Trail Mont Blanc, I say, okay, now I'm going to go back home. I was living with my grandparents, and much of our cultural practices is tied to us having connection and relationship with land. So at this time, I think of a time that I was going inward and really molding myself to be representative, like the mountains, like the landscapes that I was going along. At this time, I happened to drop out of college, out of art school, and I'm now planting and farming with my grandfather. So we're spending many hours out in the field, growing chilies, growing peas, growing melons. So long hours under the sun, and a lot of the times, either before or after we're done in the field, I would then go for a run, because, I'd spend that time in the mountains with my friends and my mentors, and I'd be home with my grandfather and my grandma during the week. And I would just have that idea running around mountains, spending time up there. So much of that relationship that I had was really being formed by planting. I think of planting that seed was that moment. I was up in the mountains, foraging, harvesting these ideas, to then taking it back home, to then being able to imbue or embed in my life this idea of being a mountain runner, as I look at it now, and really shaping myself to. I dropped out that winter's semester, and then by the summer, I already set the intention that I was going to go to school up in Fort Lewis College, which is in Durango, Colorado. And from that time, 6-month time, I spent every day running. I was either in the field planting and farming, or I was running, or I was up in the mountains backpacking with my friends. So much of my relationship with movement was also tied to my connectionship and relationship to land.
Yes.
And that's where I've built that. I think that respect and that reverence to when I go out and I run, I'm running with intention that every footstep I'm putting on the ground is getting me that much closer to what I want to live into. So at that point, I signed up. I remember I applied to Fort Lewis on a Tuesday. I got accepted by a Thursday, and by Friday I was calling the coach and saying, I'm coming from dropping out of art school, and I would really like to have a structure and a support system to help me live into this, what I want to do. And Coach Flint at the time gave me the chance to walk on and to pay a fee. And I remember 2 weeks later, I'm driving up with my family up to Durango, Colorado, and I'm getting dropped off for cross country camp. And we're going up to Cascade Camp, which is by Coal Bank Pass between Durango and Silverton. Mm-hmm. And I remember my first run just being amazed that I've never seen anything like it. I remember being up over there by Engineer Peak, and we're running around the peak, and I'm blown away that I'm even running in a surreal place like this.
From the beauty of what you were seeing, or like the fact that you're with a team, I take it, like at this point, like
all of it, all of it. Because at this time, I'm having my mentor, my family realize I'm having a switch. I'm getting back into something I'm familiar with, and I get this opportunity to run, I mean, at this point, I don't know how good I am. I know we had 2 Kenyans on the team. There was other people that were joining the team, and they were recruited. And I felt at that time a little bit insecure because I was like, I'm coming out of dropping out of school, and I've been smoking and drinking for the last year, and I'm now stepping into being an athlete, to where that time up at Cascade Camp for my first freshman year, by the end of it, again, because I was surrounding myself with that as a community, and then within the land, I knew that I was going to get somewhere. To that season, I remember working my way up. By the end of the season, I was the top runner and had one of the standout performances by regionals. And by the time I recognized regionals came around, there was all these other programs. There was, Adams State was in our program, Western State Colorado University. So now I'm not only getting the chance to run with international, like my friends Kip and Michael from Kenya, but I'm seeing other high standard programs that are putting in the work to push themselves. So I'm only being, continue to be influenced and inspired by other people pushing themselves. So by that point, I made a goal of myself that I'm gonna get myself to nationals. So then by my sophomore year, from sophomore to senior year, I qualified as an individual and one time with my team to go to nationals at Division II NCAA, cross country champs. So I just really, kind of did a full 180 from where I was at here in Santa Fe going to art school to then pursuing this athletic career in cross country.
Thank you to Beam for sponsoring this episode of the Running for a podcast and supporting many of the Together runs, which I am loving hearing that you are enjoying. I want to talk today about the Elevate Variety Pack, which I have mentioned in the past, and I am testing out some of their other products. But in the meantime, this is what I am loving. So much so that my husband, Steve, and I walk in the door after our run. We walk straight past each other, and sometimes the kids go straight to the kitchen, grab a shaker, get some cold water in there, and put one of these Beam Elevate packs into water and down it quickly because it tastes delicious. It is great for post-run, has those electrolytes and some other benefits. There is no added sugar. These hydration powders do not contain hemp. I just want to mention that. So there's no concern if you are avoiding CBD. And the variety pack brings you a mix of Elevate Balance, which is hydration and probiotic, Performance, which is hydration and energy blend, and Recovery, which is hydration and collagen. So whatever you want to be using or getting out of it, you can go do it like that. So with that variety pack, you have this chance to experience all the benefits of their 3 unique electrolyte powders. Balance has that potent blend of prebiotics, probiotics to support healthy digestion and immune function. The green energy coffee bean extract delivers an energizing boost, while compounds like beetroot and vitamin B help your body convert dietary energy into physical energy. And last but not least, the recovery restores collagen, while branch chain amino acids support tired muscles and help your body fight fatigue. They are really thoughtful with their ingredients. They are not just a hydration solution, but they're elevated supplements to help support hydration for each moment of your day. That's why their ingredients are sourced responsibly, and you'll never find added sugars, GMOs, or artificial sweeteners. So you can go to beamtlc.com and use code TINA. That's BEAMTLC.com and use code TINA to get yourself 15% off your order, or 20% off if you want to sign up for a subscription. So go to beamtlc.com and use code TINA at checkout. I would love to look into this a little bit further. Well, firstly, when I was looking you up, we just missed one another because I was at a Division II in Michigan, Ferris State. Have you heard of Ferris State?
No, Ferris?
Ferris.
No, I haven't heard of Ferris State.
Okay, Ferris State. Well, I graduated in 2012, and you would have been, that cross country was 2012 was your first cross country nationals, which I saw. So I just missed you, but funny, the schools you're mentioning, I obviously competed against them and knew many of them very well. But doing that switch, that flip, as you mentioned there, It would be very easy there to take that and say, well, art isn't for me, like the creativity side of things, like look at what that did to my life. I ended up smoking and drinking and doing things that weren't healthy for me. Yeah, you still kept that part of your life in there and now had the running in there as well. And then also, you're very passionate now about helping to promote health and living a lifestyle that is incongruent with what you believe, but also in keeping your health as a priority here. So how did you then bring these elements together, having known that the art school thing, while you said, definitely taught you some lessons and allowed that creativity to come through? I feel like a lot of people would have been almost like bitter towards some of the negative outcomes of that time and not wanted to kind of push that out of their life. So tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up because I think at an earlier point, probably midway through my athletic career at Fort Lewis, I kind of did feel that way. I was like, oh, like I had this chance to be at school at this other school, and I just wasn't able to complete it. It was more of the recognition I wasn't able to complete something that I started. But yet, at the same time, I also realized what I need to feel fulfilled and to feel supported, in my life. So it was at the same time, bittersweet, but also the recognition of how I should value myself, the valuation of like, this is what empowers me. So when you think about that, as you expressed in that way, I think about it as a way that from where I'm coming from within my communities that I represent being Katishyta, which is the Pueblo of San Felipe, which is a community in New Mexico between Santa Fe and Albuquerque along the Rio Grande, and my dad coming from El Salvador, which is the Pibil people. There's so much connection to movement in general. There's so much cultural practice around us being intentful when we run and when we move, that it's ceremonial. It's also it's very spiritual, and it's also very rooted to tradition. And so much of that is, when I think about that, is a life way, is a pathway for our communities and our people to be able to live into a life that supports the life that the livelihood and the vitality of our communities.
Yep.
So as you express in that way, it almost reminded me and grounded me back to what is remembrance and what is remembrance when you practice it. It gives that empowerment. So, as I think about that point where I reflected and now I'm pursuing something of of my athleticism, it started to dawn on me because I started to progress really well in my athletics to where I was getting, more and more attention from the native community here in the States as being a native runner, going to nationals and competing. I wasn't, top 10 or all American, but I was still pushing myself to be of an influence and inspiration for other people. Now we have an assortment of many, many native runners within many from Division 3 all the way up to D1. So I'm like, I'm content to see that I'm a part of that community. I'm a part of that. And so much of it came to me when you asked that question, is that I was being invited at that time towards the end of my college career to give talks to young people, especially young people that were going to go to higher education. And I started to think about it. I at the time when I was giving these speeches, I was grateful that some of the young people who I think are very studious, very driven, and motivated were already going to resonate with my speech. Resonate with what I had to share because they might share similar challenges and obstacles. But as I was being invited to more and more of these, engagements to connect with young people, I started to recognize there was portions of the crowd and some young people that were actually not engaged or not interested. And I think for me, that not to say bothered me, but I realized, hey, if I probably was potentially at one point in my young life in a similar way, a little bit dismissive and, it's not for me. This person is just coming to be motivational. So you know how that can go. Well, I realized in that moment that I also have another gift, which is my artistic creativity. And I can give some people the gift of speech, but I want to be able to give a gift of something else, my creative passion. So I started to make these little zine infographics. I called it imprints. in relation to setting down footprints on this earth that we leave behind, and that hopefully others will pick up. And I made this little one-page, mini zine, one pager, folded 6 times, and I would give it out to the young people. But how I had to first get that was I had to design all these little elements that would help convey the steps to what I do to prepare for any type of run, whether it be a easy run, a long run, or a race. It's just these pillars that I use to remind myself. And I would make little images, little decals. And the first one it's called imprints, but it was breath, is to remind ourselves that when we first remind ourselves of our breath, that we are present, when we can recognize that we are breathing in life and breathing out the gifts that we are able to be given. The next would be intention, which that one was going to be more of relation to our spirit, of it when we connect to our breath, then we are connecting to our intention. What is it that we want to bring forth with our breath? The next after that would then be belief. Belief is such a big thing for us to believe in ourselves, but also to have belief from the people that love and support us. The next one after that was action. Action was in relation to now taking your breath, your intention, your belief, and putting it into motion. So now put that together and do something about it. The next one after that is support, and that being representing that when you are met with a challenge or an obstacle, is that you can be asked for help. You can ask your family, you can ask your friends, you can ask a mentor, you can ask whoever. So that way you can not feel as if everything is upon you. And that's what I think about with running in general. Sometimes it is a very individual sport, but we are reliant off of each other. I think about the race day. I think about us towing the line together. And the last one was reflection, and that just being able to start that process again, to reflect, look back at how far you've come and where you're going to go, and to be grateful and to be, ready for the next time you get to do it again. So it's these little zines I made, and instead, I would just kind of take them through it a little bit, but I'd always give a zine to each of the guests that would be at my engagements. And I start to realize that the more and more I gave these out, the more people would say, "Hey, these are so cool! Like, these are cool designs."
They're beautiful. Yeah.
And I just felt grateful that I was able to share something with someone outside of just me talking, because sometimes it does resonate with some people, like, oh, he knows how to talk and give a speech, but I also have this side to me, and it's just was a way to back up and be able to connect with other people who might be more visual learners. And that's where I think it started, was like, okay, now I'm able to talk about my athleticism, but people now can see some of my creative expression through the zine. And from there, it's just kind of, I've started to do workshops talking about the zine and taking people through how to make a zine. And then from there, I've just gotten more and more confidence to share more and more of my artwork. So then now I'm being invited by Janji to design their apparel, and I'm like, I'm grateful. So
yeah, pretty amazing opportunity there. And you've also talked about the connection with running in terms of, in running, we have these tough uphills. We have the downs where, in your words, you talked about, a variety of landscapes, translating the feelings, emotions, ideas, and visions, and manifesting them into the physical world. So talk about that element of it. Like, with the mind that you have, the way that you see things, you are able to take something like running, and you've already mentioned this a little bit, and make it a more 360, a full body experience, rather than just going through the motions and saying, oh, I'm going up a hill, oh, I'm going down a hill.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds very poetic itself. That's what you said, Tina. So I mean, I
think that was your words that I found.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you paraphrasing poetically. Sometimes I think it's so bland, like, you said this, but I appreciate that. And I appreciate your intent for listening so well. So I think as it relates to me, I mean, just in relation to even sharing this whole story of myself, is I was seeing that. At many times I would see many high peaks and many summits. And now also at points I would see very many lows, many valleys, to where how am I to navigate this? How am I to be able to translate this to my whole life's pursuit of whatever it is, whatever I put my mind to? And so much of it, I think, in relation to being informed by my connection and relationship to land, is that I start to see that I am a part of this greater picture, and I have this gift of running, and I also have this gift of creatively expressing myself. So how do I start to weave that together? How do I braid that together? And I start to see that in both cases, I think running is a form of art, and art is also a form of movement. Because when you think about it, there's so many times I've been on runs and heard many comments from people, strangers on the trail, and say, "You're running like a deer. You're prancing through the mountains." And I say, "Well, what is it that makes my running different? That makes you feel to say that?" And I think about the point of continuing the fact of my passion and joy and playfulness. So that's where, going back to what we first talked about,
Yeah.
is my imagination. When I'm starting that run, I have no expectations, and I shouldn't. I should just be able to step out into my day and to be able to meet it and say, I get to. I don't have to. I
Yes.
get to run. So when I lead with that intention, the world is my canvas. The landscape is going to be some place for me to express myself. And the same would be for art. Some of it says creative, but I'd say any type of medium you see an artist, they're having to involve their full self to move, whether it be through the line work of an illustrator, whether it be through a filmmaker trying to capture a moment through a lens.
So true.
You'll see that we are reflective of what is actual natural, what is actual natural, the natural world. Those same strokes are what represent a hillside. Those same pan and intimate moments captured on a lens are the same things that you feel when you're outside amongst the trees and amongst the creeks sitting by the river and seeing things flow fluidly. And you wonder why we can reflect that. So when I think of when I think of my creativity and my passion for movement, I'm only trying to remind myself that it doesn't have to be so serious.
Yeah.
It can be playful. It can be whatever it needs to be in that moment. And when I started to think in that way, I started to realize that I was having too much of one or the other, and at this point, even today, I'm trying to find more of that harmonious state to where they both exist. To where I've tried different practices where I'll run and I'll bring a journal with me, and halfway through the run, I will draw and document my feelings while I'm in that motion. Other times, I'll do it right after the run. I'll bring out a journal and I'll just feel whatever I'm illustrating, whatever I'm drawing will come to life on that page. Other times, I'll draw out my feeling of what I want on that run, what I'm feeling before the run. And so much of it is just more of figuring out how I can say that. When I think about it, again, going back to the cultural component, is that this is a life way. At many points within many different communities, running was sought out as a form of transportation, a form of trade, a form of communication to not only peoples to peoples, but to the heaven, to the deities and beings above and below. But also, when you think about art, was also a way to move message, was able to move a message. So when you have artisans and people that have certain trades and skills, they're able to physically manifest whatever that message or that meaning is. So as I'm trying to embed and braid together these two things, I'm still refining. I'm still refining whatever that is that I'm trying to, share with people. When I think about this most recent collection that I shared with Janji, and what I'm going to be sharing with the community at large, is that we are that medium between these two components, between the sky, which is greater than us and is above us, and the land below us. So much of us being that connection, we're that node, we're that median between those 2 points. We're able to have our feet firmly on the ground, to be grounded physically in a physical sense, where you can actually have connection with Mother Earth. But at the same time, when we think about what we set our minds to, whether it be a goal or a passion, so much of we can't see that, right? And so much of the sky is reflective in that way. You can't see, we see space, we see clouds, we see the sun, but we don't see all the fine details that make up a greater thing. And that's like a lot of times how people can, how we choose to live into our lives. We don't always know or see what the end result might be or the greater picture. But the more that we can practice that, and I think about it on the run quite readily, is that we are practicing that. We are reminding ourselves that we are that point between these two. We can be grounded and we can be aspiring to greater things that we may not even know yet. And that is the middle ground. We are that connection.
Wow. That is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, talk about poetic. I mean, that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I can't believe we're already coming to end of time here, but is there anything else you would like to remind the runners listening? Maybe those who feel that, this is all great for you. You have a talent, you have a skill, you have that vision, but I don't have that. I'm just an everyday runner who's just getting out there. I don't really have that creativity to be able to do something, special. So I'm not even going to try and incorporate that into my life. What would you say to that person?
Man, hit me up so I can give you a zine so I can share some information with you so that way you can.
I don't know if you want to offer that up because then you might get like bam, 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 bam.
That would be cool. I would love to share that with people. I'm actually working right now with Janji to make a digital download for people to be able to have this zine available to themselves.
Okay, well, we'll pressure them so that they have that. Unless it's on you that they're waiting on you to finish it.
I have it done. It's a physical form, but I haven't had the chance to actually make it digitized. So that's what I'm working on now.
Okay, well, let's have that ready.
Yeah, but in relation to someone that is feeling that way, if what I haven't shared already is not enough, is just to know that we have the capabilities to be able to transform and transcend ourselves in a way that we may not recognize it in the simple subtleties of every day. Mm-hmm. So much of what we think is monotonous, right? We have to get up, go to work, take care of our kids, drink water, eat food. But when we start to realize that we can put our energy and our passion into those simple tasks, we can start to realize that everything that we have and that we do, we get to have the ability to do certain things. And so much of what many might argue or might bring forth as playing devil's advocate or something else is, well, it could be worse. Well, yeah, that is a common saying, but that's not to then make something lesser than. We shouldn't have to feel because I have this, now someone else has lesser, or that it's like that in this world. We do recognize that there's many injustices and there's many things that we, I think as a greater society, realize there are some really messed up things happening, but that shouldn't be our stance. That as a community, we shouldn't be feeling like, well, it could be worse. Mm-hmm. Because when we think of that mindset, that's a deficit mindset to think, well, it could be worse. When we could really say, I get to, and now that I have this ability, I can now feel empowered. Yeah. And how to feel, I'm not saying how to feel empowered is a generalization, but we really have to spend time with ourselves. And when I think about running, if this is, going to be attracted to runners, is that the more and more time you spend with yourself, the more and more time you get the chance to really understand what it is that makes you, you.
Yes.
I would say we're all special, and yet we're also not very special. Because at the same time, when we can say that, we also share this together. And I would say when we share this together, that's what makes us special. Is that we can have this greater connection to each other. And once we can see that in relation to the greater things in life, whether that be the natural component, whether that be the ephemeral component, or whether that be the actual physical manifestation of you being a runner, then we can continue to bring honor and reverence to this space that we give each other. And then just like how a long run might go, you might need a couple hours. You might need a couple days. You might need a couple years to get there. But guess what? You're going to get there as long as you keep putting those footsteps in front of the other.
Love that message. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Christian. So other than we'll put links in the show notes for people to check out whatever is available when this comes out in terms of working with Janji, but where else can people go find you and, just be inspired by you more? I want to hear you talk for another hour easily, if not 5.
Yeah. Website is going to be christian-gering.com. Same as the handle will be at Christian Gering on Instagram. And you'll find me on the trails. I've got a couple projects coming up here in the fall, and next season, hopefully we'll see how the pandemic and our health as a community will change. But next year, you'll be seeing me at some races. So
exciting! Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. Appreciate you and all that you do, and for inspiring us today. I certainly, I just really in my heart felt that was so special. Thank you. Appreciate you, and best of luck in training for those events.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tina. It's been a pleasure.
Before we end this episode, I just want to take a moment to shout out my podcast editor, Jeremy Nessel, who has done such a wonderful job of looking after my podcast, taking out all the mishaps in the episodes, while still keeping in the vulnerability and the realness and the rawness of the conversation. This is not one of those podcasts where I take out the ums and the ers and the sometimes the delay in words, because I think it's very important to keep that authenticity. We're surrounded by perfected and manicured everything, and I think it's really important that Running for Real stays that way. So thank you to Jeremy for your work. I also want to thank Maria Vargas and Amber Moore, who are also part of my team. They've been a big part of this community and me being able to build this brand. So just want to give them a shout out too. All right, let's get right back to the end of this episode. Thanks so much to Christian for joining me today. And also thanks to Dave for introducing me to Christian. I'm excited to see what they come up with. I have to tell you, I have seen sneak peeks of the clothes and they look great. I'm really excited for them all, really. That was a fascinating conversation, and I really loved learning from Christian. I love the way that he thinks. I love the lessons that he can teach us. And I felt like I could have talked for a lot longer with him. And in fact, we will be connecting again in the future. So stay tuned. There may be something there in the future. Who knows? I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. You can get 15% off your order by going to gooder.com/Tina. You can also get 25% off your order by going to insidetracker.com/Tina. And that will get you 25% off the entire website. That's a massive discount. And also thank you to Beam. You can go to beamtlc.com and use code Tina to get yourself 15% off your order or 20% off a subscription. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting me. When you purchase a product from our sponsors, you are also supporting me, and I only recommend the products that I really use and love. Thank you for joining me today. You can check out the Together runs if you have not already checked those out, that come out on Mondays. And also you can get another episode of the Running for Real podcast again next Friday. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week.